text message the other day and
We are live now. Okay, we have 1 minute to go. I think we can call this meeting to order. Ryan is going to be late. So we have a quorum, so I call the meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Education Health and Safety Committee to order. And flag. I'm sure we're going to say the pledge later. So, as long as we get it in sometime this evening, I'm good. We will start with our guest from Intervention for Nicotine Dependence, Education, Prevention, Tobacco, and Health. And I don't know if Mr. Sanford is on yet.
Yes, I am.
Hi, Tom, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm great. Well, I had a Zoom meeting with Mr. Sanford with the Cincinnati Health Department and representatives from the American Lung Association and Heart Association. And they have a program that they would like to present to this committee that after getting a summary of it a couple of weeks ago, I thought that, you know, Ms. Bowers, Mr. Messer isn't here right now, but I could fill him in, but it sounds like a very beneficial program, and we'd like to run it past the committee and the administration. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. We appreciate the time here. I just need to share my screen to get the presentation up. Pardon me. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Courtney, are you on? All right. Courtney, can you hear me? So we are having a bit of a technology problem. I can hear Courtney in the other room, but I cannot hear her on the call. Can anyone else hear Courtney?
No, we can't hear her. Okay,
perfect. I think Courtney might have to come into my office. I do apologize for this. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and get started. If Courtney comes over, then we'll just fill her in there. Introduction. So my coworker here, she's the tobacco-free living coordinator. Her name is Courtney Calvin. She graduated from the University of Cincinnati with a bachelor's in arts. My name is Tom Sanford. I am a public health educator for the Cincinnati Health Department. And here is Courtney. We are so sorry about that for the technology problems. So the background of the in-depth program. So in 2018, the American Lung Association contracted with the West Virginia University on the Alternative to Suspension program, but they updated that. And so the program then began to incorporate e-cigarettes, and that it really revised what that program was to be more relevant for today's youth. The program itself, it was originally called the Alternative Suspension, but then they switched it to the Alternative to Suspension, so that way it focused more on education and intervention.
So why is this program important, you might ask? Why should Cincinnati Public Schools implement the in-depth program? So as you see here, e-cigarette use is popular among high school students, has increased 78% in just 1 year, with over 3 million youth using products in 2018 alone. 1 in 5 high school students and 1 in 20 middle school students currently use some form of an e-cigarette. This equates to more than 5,700 teens who start vaping each and every day.
How does in-depth work? It is taught by a trained adult who has been smoking for at least 12 months. It contains 4 50-minute sessions for youth. It educates students on nicotine addiction and cravings, and for their own reasons, so whether that's peer pressure, stress, or even COVID related. It can be offered before, during, or after school as the school schedule allows. So that would be up to CPS, where they would feel that it would be best implemented, whether after. And it can be administered one-on-one, but it is recommended that classes should be at least 8 to 10 students. That way the facilitator can kind of get more from the students. It also helps the facilitator cover more ground when it comes to youth.
Great. So in-depth program has 4 50-minute sessions which focus strictly on tobacco. A little fact here, tobacco use is the #1 preventable cause of death pre-COVID. So we really want to key in using these 4 50-minute sessions and educating the youth of Cincinnati Public Schools about tobacco. So in session 1, they're going to get the facts. We're going to break down the program for the participants. In session 2, the addiction will be discussed. It'll explain the harmful effects of nicotine and tobacco products. In session 3, alternatives will be the focus area. This is going to help teens understand their urges and identify healthy ways to replace tobacco use. And in the last session 4, they're going to discuss the past, present, and future. So next steps and how our youth can avoid future tobacco use related problems.
In 2019, the program was piloted through 11 sites across the county. The sites included middle schools, high schools, alternative schools, and systems. The sites were urban and rural communities. Evaluation was developed by the Public Health Management Corporation to survey participants, facilitators, and administrators. That way they can kind of navigate which way that the program should go and how to improve it. All of that information is available online.
So as you can see here, these are the in-depth pilot sites. There are 92 facilitators in 62 schools. Looking at the list here of schools that are pilot sites, you see 2 are in Ohio. It is with great hope that Cincinnati Public Schools can be the 3rd school and the largest in the district that invites in-depth into their schools and become a pilot site.
So the pilot outcomes, over 60% of the students that participated in the program were willing to quit using tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, which is, always great to hear. And then most students reported that in-depth activities influenced them to make a plan to stop using nicotine or tobacco products.
All right, so looking here at the in-depth landing page, this is a page that you'll see on the American Lung Association's website. And this has facts and resources. It has a summary of the pilot program. There's the facilitator training registration piece. Talks about vape-free schools and policy language there. There's also a little bit of information about a program called Not on Tobacco, the cessation program, and there's more information located on that site there.
Okay, so becoming a facilitator, again, any adult who has been tobacco-free for at least 12 months can be a facilitator. So whether that's a school nurse, resource officer, teacher, etc., it is recommended that it is a person who the students trust. Usually with trust comes more openness to the program, and students have always succeeded when that has been put in place. The direct registration is going to be on the in-depth landing page, what we just saw. The training is free and on demand, and they can really take it whenever they want. The training takes roughly 45 minutes to an hour to complete.
So becoming a facilitator, the training for this to become a facilitator for the in-depth program has some great resources and feedback. You can learn about the program and the history and why there is really a need to implement in-depth in Cincinnati Public Schools. We understand that students are being suspended for being caught with nicotine products, but we want to curb that suspension. We really want our students in school active and ready to learn. And so if they're suspended, they can't necessarily learn the materials that they need if they're suspended for things such as tobacco products. So we also want our facilitator to understand the problem that youth are facing around tobacco, Why are youth using tobacco? We also want them to know the types of products. So products have changed over time, of course, as when we were all young adolescents. So we really want to learn about marketing and tactics that tobacco companies use to recruit our youth. And in Cincinnati alone, there are 62 tobacco retailers within walking distance of a Cincinnati public school. So we know that the students are going to the store, before school, after school, and we really want our facilitators to be in the know of the tobacco, the flavors, the products that our youth are using. We really want our facilitator to understand the in-depth program structure, which includes the layout and content. And then we really want to implement this program effectively for both our facilitators, both our staff, and our youth.
So the facilitator certificate is good for 3 years, and just facilitators receive access to in-depth facilitator guide and resource center. That link below will take you to the registration, so you can actually start beginning the facilitator training. But those resources are going to be there to keep you updated, to make sure that because there's a menthol ban that the federal government's talking about, so that would also.
So let's talk about benefits. Why should Cincinnati Public School implement the in-depth program? So for one, the most important benefit, there's no cost. So Cincinnati Public Schools does not have to pay for this program. The students and the teachers and staff will receive this program available to them at no cost. This is a teaching model, and it reinforces model behaviors. We are able to intervene early to de-escalate inappropriate behaviors such as tobacco use on campus or off campus. Students will be supported in their needs, and this will address the root causes of students' misconduct. And finally, another benefit for this program is that it will prepare students for smoke-free environments. We know that in Cincinnati Public Schools, upon graduation, students will enroll, enlist, and employ. And so we really want our students to be in the know that once they leave Cincinnati Public Schools and go into the real world, their place of employment will have a smoke-free ban. Their place that they enroll for college or higher education will have a smoke-free ban. And if they enlist in the military, we also know that they have a smoking ban as well. So this will prepare our students for once they go beyond the walls of CPS, they will face smoke-free environments.
And so to implement in-depth, so in-depth comes with a toolkit to make it easy to put right in to the CPS system. The four training sessions for the youth, they are all right there. There's nothing that CPS would need to do. The facilitator training, same thing. They just go and they register on the American website. It's all right there. And the American Lung would also offer technical support as well as Cincinnati Health Department. If there are any questions that you might have down the road, we are always going to be there.
Wow. So before we end here and seek any questions that anyone may have, just a few things. In-depth program is available in English, of course, and there's also a model in Spanish. We're working with American Lung Association for other languages as well, but those are currently the two that we have available. Materials, again, are at no cost to you, and so the training facilitator guide would include all handouts. So there's nothing that Cincinnati Public Schools will have to do on their end. It includes all handouts and all guides for the facilitator. Again, we really want a trusted individual that these students know, love, admire, and respect to become facilitators, and we can help with recruitment of that as well for your schools. We also have high hope that you all will implement this program for your students. We see a great benefit factor for you as well as your students. And for future, it has gone really overwhelmingly well with parents. A lot of parents have been on board. They really want an alternative to suspension for their students. They really want to learn more about tobacco. As I spoke earlier, times have changed. Students are vaping. They're being marketed. They're targeted by tobacco companies. And we really want to get a clear understanding for our youth to understand that there are different alternatives to tobacco use. It does affect every organ in the body. A lot of students may not know that, but it does affect us all. We have all been affected in some form or fashion by tobacco and tobacco use. So we are here as a support. We thank you for listening and welcoming us. So if you have any questions, you're free to let us know. You can email. Our contact information is there. And we really, really, really thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Bowers, do you have questions?
Let me short because I have time. Thank you for the presentation. I love all of that. As a licensed chemical dependency counselor myself, I am all about prevention. The question I do have is this for identified students, meaning is this early intervention, or is this more of a prevention that everybody gets psychoeducation?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So this, believable, it can be for students who are identified early on, but it's also to be used for students who are caught, who you bring into your principal's office, who are caught vaping, smoking, having tobacco products on them. We want to use this as a tool of prevention, but as well as for a solution for those kids who have been caught indulging in these behaviors. So we really want to be able to be proactive in our approach of implementing this program. Good question. Thank you.
I have a question for the administration. What is the discipline for students who are caught with tobacco products in the school?
Right now, it can range. So typically, it starts as an assignment to the alternative.
So one proposal that our guest did suggest is instead of putting them in 8E8S, have them go through the program. And that has proven to be effective in other schools. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So there's also an evaluation piece that comes. So those schools that I just showed you the list of who have implemented in depth, they did do a teacher evaluation, a student evaluation, and a parent evaluation. So over 60% of the youth that participated found this program really effective and have curbed their use of tobacco because of such program that has been implemented beforehand in their school.
Yes,
with that our board member base, I'm thinking of implementation. And I know I'm probably in the weeds. I'm always in the weeds probably. But I was thinking of as Beck said, offering this program instead of alternative suspension, and sometimes that buy-in from parents will they still be in school, but they get an SAD, complete it, and then return to school. Just thinking about how that rolls off, just that experience, how they counselors sometimes with stuff to do, it doesn't always roll off like that.
Yeah, we have to definitely, and so I'm glad Dr. Butler is here with us this afternoon. So I think it's something that we would because typically students are assigned to the in-school component as a first infraction, and then it escalates. So where this program might come in and dovetail.
Yes, so this is considered a Category 2 offense as per student code of conduct. And so an alternative learning center is certainly one of the menu of options and can be utilized within the alternative learning center. And the ALC pairs can be tried.
So what I would like to do is with the agreement of my colleague here is to refer to the administration a study of this program with our colleagues at the Health Department, American Lung Association, and Heart Association to see if this is something that would help our kids and would fit in with our progressive, restorative kind of discipline. Are you in agreement? Absolutely. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You.
We look forward to working with you in the future. And again, thank you for having us.
Thank you. All right, next up is Senator Kearney with our update. Is Mr. Glover on the line, or are you solo today?
I think he is on the line.
Mr. Glover, are you there?
Mr. Glover is not on the line at the moment.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Then it's
Well,
all
then
you.
you're just stuck with me. Okay.
We love you.
So a couple of things. One, I just highlighted that we're still in budget season, so everything's a little bit crazy in terms of what's going on. And then I highlighted 3 articles. One of them I think I sent to offline, Madam Chair, and then there's other ones about an article about the school board voting to quit wearing masks, and then Dayton had paid some money to solve their busing woes, and I know that CPS that's always in for us about how to cover busing. So that's why I included those. Arranged for the superintendent to meet with the president when she was in town, whenever that was, a few weeks ago. And then George had a call with Senator Blessing, who, as you know, represents part of CPS district. And during that conversation, George got information about our funding, the funding formula, and how it will impact CPS. And so we shared that information with Krista. Krista is going to arrange for a meeting with Senator Blessing, George, and myself to discuss, to go through the formula so that we can see the real impact for CPS and then report that back to you. So where we are in the cycle is probably next week after Memorial Day, the Senate will finalize its version and vote on it. And then it will go to conference committee where the House version and the Senate version will be worked out. And then we'll get a vote the last week of June. As you know, in the state of Ohio, we have to have our budget completed by June 30th. The new budget starts in July. Some of the bills that there's an asterisk to some of them, and those are bills that either we think might get incorporated into the budget, or will have some momentum after the budget is passed. And so those are just a few of them. There's been a couple of new bills introduced, but they're just like first hearing or second hearing. A whole lot there. And then we've included the leadership in the Senate and the House and the relevant committees. I don't know why the headings fell out and moved somewhere else. I don't know. I can't explain it. But it looked great on my computer screen when I did it, but it printed out wrong. So that's basically the report. I mean, we're just in budget season, so there's just a lot of, quite frankly, priority issues for the district that relate to us are the financing of Huff Patterson, and there's talk that that's going to be incorporated into the budget. That's what we're.
Questions, Ms. Ballard? For administration? That's awesome, thank you.
Oh, okay.
You're not put on the hot seat today.
Yeah.
Or just wait for the outcome, right?
Yeah. Crazy comment.
Yeah, well, when isn't it?
Well, I mean, this is.
Right.
Yeah. But apparently it's going to be good for us. It's not going to work,
Great.
Yeah.
We'd like to hear that. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay, here we go. We are going into resource coordinators and community learning center.
So, I'm not clear what the ask was, but Casey does have some information to share.
Information's good. I think it was on the work plan.
Okay.
Just so we get an update, even if it's in writing, I'm good with that. We don't have to.
And so I just covered a couple of areas. Some are scholars included, since our resource coordinators are working hand in hand with the schools to make sure that the partners are coordinated. So just a brief here, I just highlighted that we have over 73 partners that submitted for the RFP. Thank you to our resource coordinators again for coordinating that communication, and just some of the logos to highlight the partners that are working with us. But on the back is probably more so what you're looking for as far as the work plan over the summer. I did have a great conversation with Jessica Shelley this morning in food services, and they let me know that there will be 23 meal hubs that they're supporting for the month of June. That will be open to the community students under 18, so our resource coordinators will work at those 23 hubs to ensure that we have additional resources out to our families, although we know that food is covered, especially with the continuance of the EBT meal support financed through the EBT. the resource coordinators will focus more so on activities for our students to be able to do over the summer. We also, with help of Tracy Stillwell, coordinated some kits to go home with our learners. We are looking for an additional partners to provide those kits. As they were talking a bit more, we missed the RFP process to be able to get all the kits through the one partner. So we are working on that, and even searching Amazon to be able to do it. Also with Jessica Shelley, we have coordinated supplying snacks for all of our primary schools for summer scholars. So each school has snacks that will last them the entire month, as well as water, and water out to the high schools. We did not neglect the high schools with the snacks because they're pretty elementary, so we knew that they would be as appreciated at that age level. So the schools will be supporting those students. And keeping in mind the number of water bottles that we're sending out to schools, I am trying to reach out to Keep Cincinnati Beautiful in hopes that the resource coordinators and partners can help us with recycling. I'm very adamant about saving the planet, so I want to make sure that those bottles are being recycled. The tops, we have schools like John P. Parker who collect those bottle tops to help provide their benches. So with the help of our resource coordinators, we will be doing a recycling campaign. And again, food services, Jessica Shelley has been really, really awesome. So we'll do it as like a competition where the school that recycles the most can be rewarded at an ice cream party there on site. Also, with the help of the resource coordinators, we will be reaching out to see if there's a partner within our network that could help us do something really exciting and special with those recycled materials, maybe creating some art with the water bottles, or for the resource coordinators to connect partners back to the building that could do that with the students there. And then additionally, our resource coordinators will support the month of July and August as those meal hubs do continue, and they will be completing their work plans and sending that back to their specialists.
Questions, Ms. Powers?
No, just kudos, because I've heard several people in the community excited about helping sponsor them with the outside of the school, like last time, so I was excited.
And I'm also on the rec commission representing the board, and they're doing hot meals at the rec center. So yeah, our kids are going to be able to get nutritious meals from both us and the resources of CRC, so that's awesome.
Yes, and those partners that are serving our students as well will have the opportunity, just like they did before, to connect with Jessica Shelley at Iowa Street if they'd like to pick up meals services. So if they don't have a provider, then they can still connect with the school to get those meals picked up.
My grandkids get those meals and snacks. They just love them.
Love it.
Yeah, they
You'd be
do.
surprised when having hospital. Even though I don't have hospital. That'll be good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad to die for this.
awesome. Well, thank you very much for the update. We're excited about the Summer Scholars Program. And it sounds like, we have organized throughout the city between what we're doing with the academics and what CRC is doing with the youth programming and the pools and the city camps. So, hopefully we can keep our kids occupied in a productive way. Well, thank you. All right. Yeah, because Carolyn could be all over me. Next is Student Code of Conduct Discipline data, which we requested on a quarterly basis, and I know that things look a little different this year, but.
We do. So we have Dr. Carrie Bunker with us this afternoon, and she's going to share an update on where we are with our code of conduct. As you know, it used to have FACT, was the committee that took a look at code of conduct for initial approval, and then moved on to full board. So we have a status update on code of conduct. She's going to review discipline data with you, and then she's also going to share some anti-violence initiatives. And then I think Ms. Murphy has the most current update on SROs. So our next.
I've got to move congratulations mind sharing?
Sure. Sure, yeah, I got it. Okay, so we'll start with, or did you want to share really quickly, and then have Dr.
Is that okay?
Do you want to go ahead? Because I've been doing some work on behalf of the committee to pull together some resources, from the elected. So if you do SROs, I'll kind of give you my input too. You go ahead and
Just 2 points. General Counsel Dan Hoying has set up a meeting with ACLU. So that's coming up early June. And then the second point, we did have the meeting with the high school principals to get their input as well on the SROs. So here facilitated that conversation, and we are going to get a report from them. Then they're going to consolidate the earlier report you received when it was the parents and the students, and now we'll have principal input as well.
Okay. And I'll when we discuss these various areas, I'll let you know who I've been in touch with. I've been in touch with conversations with about 4 council members and 2 police officers about our initiatives. And Greg Landsman was the council member I had a meeting with regarding the SROs. And he's totally in support of getting good information. His strong suggestion to me was just to get in touch with Eddie Hawkins. Well, just by coincidence, Eddie was on the dais at the Woodward graduation, and he was the he's the president of the Woodward Alumni Association. And he had talked to Greg after Greg and my conversation, and he sought me out. So he said, let's talk about this. And so we were kind of texting back and forth, and he was very, very, very happy to hear from me, because he's been hearing everything that's out there, but he really hadn't, he's in charge of youth programs and SROs for the police department. So he was, just thought it was, very beneficial that we are at least talking. And so we can hear what he said. The SROs run summer programs. We're not Columbus. We're not other cities. We have our own police department. We run our own programs. We have a long history with the district. So what he suggested, and he's getting in touch with his lieutenant, is that we go out to visit their office on Sloan Street and talk to the officers. So that was going to be an assignment I was going to make to our committee, that we have a field trip.
I've been there. I already know all that. But I'm going
and talk about, if you're familiar with it, but, to go out and interact with the officers, ask them our questions. And I think as long as we don't discuss board business, we don't have to call it a committee meeting. And if anybody from the administration would want to come too, certainly, that could be arranged. So that was my last conversation with Officer Hawkins. I'm not sure what his title is.
He's an SRO.
But is he officer or captain? Officer, okay. And so that was last week that we had this conversation. So we have to arrange, a meeting or not even a meeting, just go out to Sloan and talk to the officers and, see what's going on. The other person I contacted with regard to the SROs was Janet Kearney, because she was very forthcoming in, newspaper articles about supporting anti-violence initiatives in the city. And I told her that the city, that we have not gotten data from the city, or we've not been able to verify the data that the ACLU and young activists have. And we were told by the city they didn't give it to them. So she's going to be working with so today, I had a phone call with her about a week or 2 ago. Today her office called me to ask for specifics about what I want. And so they're going to be, she's going to make the request through her office for the data. So hopefully we can verify data, get good information about what's going on in our schools by the high school and, by the arrest and types of arrests. So that, and I talked to her today, or I talked to her office today on that issue. So that's what I've done so far with regard to the SROs. And then we get to the anti-violence initiative, I found a little more.
I would love to join you when you go to Sloan. Officer Hawkins has been on board from the very beginning. He's been in SROs for years. When I started at Woodward in 2008, he was my SRO. He runs the city camps for the kids. He runs the police cadet program. We've been partnering with them to get some of our kids to participate as well. So I'm very interested whenever time permits for your schedule.
Good. And I stood next to him during the graduation when we were congratulating graduates, and he was very warmly received by the students.
Absolutely. They know him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so glad you had a chance to have that conversation. I think I too am concerned about where some people are getting this data from. I cannot find it. And no one on administration has shared that with the young activists, for example. So when they say it's our data, I'm not certain where it all is coming from. When I talked with the police, and I did a records request formally as well, maybe that was 2 months ago at this point. I have no idea where they're getting this information.
And the city's saying they didn't give it to the young activists or the ACLU. But hopefully Jen Michelle will be able to help us out. Yes, Ms. Bauer.
On top of how the conversation goes with Daniel and the ACLU, that will be interesting to find out where that data is from.
Yeah.
And we can verify it if you get the information.
And school discipline data is not the same as police data.
Yeah.
And in terms of how many times an officer reports to a building, my expectation is you're going to report every day. And so I think those numbers might be a little skewed because I expect you to show up. So I think the interpretation of some of that data is interesting as well as weird.
We can't replicate it.
Interesting.
It is interesting. So anyway, hopefully we can verify or come up with a set of data that is, and Councilmember Kearney thought that her office could help us with that. So that's what I found with regard to the SRO. So it's kind of moving, but we really don't have a report yet. I wanted to at least give you the status of my conversation. And if you have any context, go for it. But I haven't been able to connect with these folks. So the next.
So, is this a good time for Dr. Bunker to briefly share what she has?
Yeah.
Okay. So I apologize. Dr. Bunker, you are on my time.
Do you want me to start with the discipline?
Yes.
Okay. So all of you that are here from administration, sorry, my friend gave me an additional copy. I have a copy of the presentation for today. As requested, I'm going to provide an update in terms of discipline data, where we are with the code of conduct, as well as initiatives moving forward for positive school culture and safety. The charts that you see within the presentation, what you see is a 3-year frequency. ODR stands for Office Discipline Referral. So this is looking from a district-wide lens. How many office discipline referrals did we have in 2018, 2019, and then 2020? The consequence total are exclusionary consequences. So this is not a phone call home, restorative conversation. This is a student being removed from the classroom or being removed from school. So when it says consequence total, it means exclusionary consequence. And then the percentage of referrals that led to the exclusionary consequences listed. In that, I'm going to call it orange, but I'm not sure if it is. In the orange columns that you see there, you can see that the data is significantly less during the time of distance learning, hybrid learning, the year that we've had this year. The rates have decreased. They did increase as we return to school. So the first slide you see fall to winter, and then the next slide is winter to spring. And there's asterisks just by March 2020 because that was the time that we transitioned due to COVID-19. So I just wanted to offer perspective in terms of our discipline rates this year compared to previous years so that you could look at frequency over time. I do want to share in terms of our top 5 offenses as we transition back to in-person learning. Disruptive behavior, fighting, disobedience, disorderly conduct, and inappropriate communication are our top 5. During the time of distance and blended learning, inappropriate communication and cheating due to students accessing information on the internet moved up in terms of top 5 infractions. And inappropriate communication is still on there. That's just related to communication that occurs over Schoology or some Google Meet or something like that. In terms of the work of the Code of Conduct, I did want to share that we have a fantastic district discipline committee that is comprised of both community folks as well as central office folks and specialists within the field. We have principals, teachers, our legal aid, our general counsel, our lead school psychologist, lead school social worker, who help inform the work of the district discipline committee. And one of their major tasks, as you are aware, is to review the student code of conduct and make recommendations to the board in terms of language for the code of conduct. So the next slide summarizes our timeline around the code. We had the great opportunity, CPS, Northwest Schools, as well as Princeton, won a competitive grant to participate in the Georgetown University partnership to decrease the school and prison pipeline and increase diversionary programming. And we are working with Legal Aid, Hamilton County Education Service Center, JFS, and Children's Hospital all together within this partnership. We have received an audit back from the Georgetown University partnership, and that was sent to the discipline committee for review on our code of conduct. And we had, in addition to Georgetown University, all those partners that I've listed, national experts review our code. Those recommendations were sent to district committee, reviewed, and then we have the edited version, and I have a high-level summary of the edits that I'd like to share with you. The Office of Community Engagement has those edits and said that they should have a red line version of the code of conduct for board approval by the end of the week. So I will defer to your guidance on what our next steps are with the code, whether that would go back to health and safety or go to full board.
What is the deadline for printing? Are we under time constraints?
So August is typically when we printed less. This year, just because of COVID-19, we printed enough for our teachers to have instead of for the whole district to have. And so it would be great if we could have it before August.
Can you send it to us, to the committee in writing, so we can react?
Yeah.
And then, Ms. Dowers, we can decide if, we want to move it along or if there are discussion points. That work for you? Okay.
We'll be happy to do that. On the next slide, I have the summary of the code of conduct revision. We want to increase, and we will have intentional language around the fact that our work around the code of conduct and everything that we do within student discipline is to reduce race-based disparities, including explicit reference to our equity and anti-racism policies. We're going to make sure there's explicit language around mitigating factors that administrators consider when issuing consequences. Those mitigating factors include age, developmental level, special education status, language acquisition, and can also involve mental health when issuing consequences that are developmentally appropriate for the child. We want to add intentional language on the student's willingness to repair harm when issuing restorative consequences. For restorative consequences to work, the student needs to be open to repair harm. But if the student is not, that doesn't mean we double down on punitive consequences. We just need to take that into account when issuing those types of consequences. We want to further refine the definition of restorative practices, which is currently in our code of conduct, but we want to further refine what it means to issue restorative practices in CPS. We want to add proactive language on the importance of parent-caregiver to school communication throughout a child's educational career. Refine our due process language, continue to remove criminal language like restitution from our code of conduct, and add academic considerations. If the student is removed from the classroom or removed from school, they're doubly harmed if they don't have access to their education. So we want to provide opportunities for students to have access to academics during that time, if it so happens. In the next slide, you'll see a summary of the anti-violence positive school culture initiatives. This is a high-level list of initiatives that we want to continue as a district, as well as increase in terms of capacity. So on the left-hand side, positive behaviors intervention supports will continue across tiers or levels of support. It's state law, it's best practice, and what we will continue to do. Quality improvement, social emotional learning schools, we will continue to expand, and I believe in the strategic plan it says from 17 to 27 schools. Our bully prevention efforts will continue. Our work with alternative learning centers and transforming those from traditional ISS to ALC will continue, with training of our ALC paras at minimum once a semester, and provide monthly technical support to our ALC paras. Attendance and truancy support will continue in consultation with our Department of Student Services. We'll continue our work with the behavior consultation team, which provides expert level support for our students with very intense behavioral needs. Of course, we'll continue our collaboration with mental health partners like MindPeace and reimagine A to F, A to E moving forward, which is required by ODE that the 8 large urban school districts have an alternative program in lieu of suspension or school. We'll also increase our school social worker capacity, increase our number of school social workers, including bilingual support. We're in active search for bilingual mental health therapists, which is a challenge but a great need, not only in finding our bilingual mental health supports, but also to make sure that all students, regardless of their immigration status, can have access to mental health. So we are on the pursuit for that. We're going to increase our restorative practices training with a phased-in approach. We want to continue to improve our processes and discipline reporting to make sure that those are consistent. Increase our capacity of Tier 2 social emotional groups, which would include reduction of violence. It may even include the anti-vaping initiative, depending on how those are all incorporated. Increasing our MindPeace rooms. CPS was able to work with Children's Hospital to secure funding through a mental health grant, where the funds have recently been released, which will allow us to have increased de-escalation opportunities for our students, including our high school students. Through the same grant, mental health grant, we would have the ability to purchase anti-violence programming, and I am interested board member Bates to hear about the information that you were able to collect. We are looking to purchase Too Good for Drugs and Violence, which is a evidence-based program to try to reduce violence and substance abuse at the high school level. And we want to increase our stakeholder engagement with students, parents, caregivers, and community members in this space, so that we are working with students and families and not at students and families. So that's a summary of the work in terms of positive school culture discipline.
And kind of add a couple things that I've been talking about, and with some leaders, and I know that especially this anti-violence, this is going to, a lot of what of the programming is in school, but I mean there's crazy things happening out in the community, and some are, we can't say they're all our kids, they're not. I mean, what happened at Kings Island over the weekend, that probably was too. I mean, that's, kids are, some of them maybe are, some of them maybe from other districts, whatever, but there are kids, and there's quite a bit of, there's, homicide, there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on, and it's not going to get better unless people step up and, come up with some solutions. So, this one, I think, is very interesting, and this is more of an in-school initiative. Have you ever heard of the nonprofit called Grant Us Hope?
Yes.
Okay. The city, I talked to Chris Steelbach about this, and I don't know if you have considered it yet, or if you've been approached.
We have been, so, I know Diane Akers from a different component of my life, so we have, spoken about that. We actually have a.
Now, the city has appropriated $50,000 towards this programming for our kids, and Chris Steelbach told me that they would like to partner with us for an additional $50,000, which, I mean, we're not talking millions of dollars. So the city has already appropriated some money for this. Ms. Bowers, if you wanted to look on the website just to learn a little bit more about this programming, but I just found it very interesting and that the city is supporting this as well. So I didn't know if you knew that they had this money appropriated.
Yeah.
And were asking us for a match and at many high schools. But this would be suicide prevention and anti-bullying.
Yeah.
So you are meeting with, can you report back to this committee as to the outcome of that meeting with Mrs. Zenger?
Sure.
Okay, great. And anti-violence, I mean, that's a pretty heavy subject. I was in another meeting, actually, I was there as a representative of Cincinnati Rec, but there are bad things going on at Roseland Park. CRC has like 52 properties, and we really only have problems at 3 of them. And Roseland Park is one, I think Grand Park's another, I forget what the third is. Since there have been changes in the configuration of Twin Lakes at Eden Park, the overlook. The people who were going there with their motorcycles and, drugs and parties have moved on. They seem you solve one problem and they move on. Well, now there's a problem at Roseland Park. And so there's clash between those, I guess, Clark and Walnut. That's where they play baseball. So the back end is the academy and the baseball field. Front end is the public space, and it's being abused. And there's lots of drug dealing, all of that. Anyway, so there was a meeting with CRC, with District 4, with Phil Castellini ran the meeting. The president of the Bond Hill Community Council, the president of Roseland Community Council, to get everybody on the same page moving forward. Well, I don't know. Do you know Lieutenant Cunningham from District 4? He took Sean George's place.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, we know Sean. But anyway, after the meeting, I was talking to him about, an anti-violence initiative. And what he said, I said, is there, maybe there's misalignment, somewhere. It's just really, these problems are pervasive, and the cops know who the problem are, who the perpetrators are, and we know our kids that are saying there's a small number of youth that are causing problems, and the large number want safety, So I just found this really interesting. He said that, I said, well, you're arresting youth for smoking pot. And he said there has to be repercussions. He feels very strongly that first, youth start drinking, then they progress to marijuana, then they progress to dealing marijuana, then they progress to buying guns so they can deal more marijuana and harder drugs. But he's very much in favor of repercussions on the front end. So he was not very receptive to not arresting youth for marijuana. And I said, well, he said, what do you suggest? And I said, well, some restorative practices or education. And he said, like we do for DUIs. He said that the biggest population of arrests for DUIs, or, at least stops for DUIs, are white males from 17 to like 25. And they go through a restorative program. And I think they even, they may not have a record if they agree to go through the program. Well, pot or African American youth. It's the African American youth that are using the marijuana and the white youth that are using the alcohol, but there's a program for the white youth and alcohol, but the black youth are getting arrested. And it's like, it was kind of like, well, aha, that's something that the city could work on, is some kind of program, that youth can go through, like the youth go through for DUIs, and that way they, have their arrest records forgiven or whatever. So he also said if we do have programs or places that youth can go, that he said he would take me and drive around and get it in the kids' hands. He said that's what you have to do. You have to meet the kids and go right to the kids. You can't just offer a program. So he's very open, and I don't know if he meant me and him or his officers and some of our representatives, if we have the programming, or even CRC too as well, because I know they have programming. But anyway, we had that conversation, which I thought was very productive, finding out a little bit more about what kind of arrests and who's involved, and but a suggestion that, and I know that Cohere talked to our principals, but I talked to Dan Hoyne about this, and I also ran it by Eddie Hawkins because I didn't want him to think that we were doing something that's setting them up, but he's very open to this too, and Dan thought it was a good idea that we have Lauren Roberts do an operational audit of our SRO and find out how we're using them, and talk to the principals and see if they're being used consistently in the high schools, just to find out, if we are using best practices. If some schools are, are using the SROs in a more productive way than other schools. So I was going to ask Ms. Bowers at the committee if we wanted to make that assignment to the administration, to have it, and I can also, audit committee, I think, meets next week, but if the administration would do that, have Lauren undertake an operational audit of the SRO programs at the high schools. Yes,
I think that would be great, because I know there's a lot of conversation in the community about this MOU. That's out, and been reviewing it also, just to see what, and I think the operational part is part of that process also. And with regard, so I think, yes, for that, I think that would be ideal, because we do need to see what's happening in each school and how the different effective to make it better in some schools that may not be utilizing.
So that's an assignment to the
I think so. And the other question I had, and I'm not sure on time, is when we talk about programming for students, for first-time offenders in education, we need to really think about, is that $50,000 something that can go? I know you said that's for a school based on the city, the grant for hope, grant us hope, and what have you. But when we talk about funding programming, that's bigger than us. It's more legislative, and I think for sustainability-wise, I think it's ideal. But knowing that these type of programs will require ongoing, we probably have to bring in some other kind of partners to the table. But I think it's a good idea. I think that's a good idea.
We do have some partners currently in our
my what I took on behalf of this committee was to come up with a framework for anti-violence in partnership with with the city, because we have to. And Councilmember Sunderman offered to take this on in her committee. So, we have almost a quorum of council on board, with these initiatives helping us in one way or another. So I think you can move forward. I'm not sure that, well, we're working with the police department and they're very open to working with us too, so. Anyway, that's what I have brought, so we have the assignment and for the two, the report back on the Granite Hope and also the operational audit for SRO. Inclusive of the MOU, correct. Okay, anything else, Ms. Bowers? Do we have anything else on the agenda?
You do.
Oh, the COVID-19 will be on the agenda tonight, right, Laura?
In terms
Of reporting.
not an actual report out, but just.
Right.
You know, you already.
Okay, so we'll listen to more information on that topic a little bit later. And the strategic plan, strategies, and budget. Well,
Come on in, here's the last item.
we are ready. We can. So that's, I think that's kind of out of committee now because that was full force last week, right? Yeah. So I think we are finished here.
My school started getting vaccinated today.
Yay.
So, I'm looking forward to seeing numbers.